We gonna drop the bomb. I can see it fall from the blood red sky. We got to fight it all. Race until we see the whites of their eyes. When the rain starts pouring down, revolution's such a lovely sound. I can see the sharks are closing in, and there's blood in the water now. So what you fighting for? This is where we draw the line. This is where we draw the line. I hear your battle cry. Let me hear your battle cry. Let me hear your battle cry. Let me hear your battle cry.
Oh, hi everyone, and welcome into Behind the Helm. If you want to watch this show live, tune in every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Make sure to leave a comment down below, and we'll respond live. As always, find it, like it, share it, follow it. But if you want to watch the show after the fact, head on over to YouTube or on Facebook, where the shows are cataloged, and you can see all the comments and notes and still watch the show and any bonus content. If you just want to listen to the show, head on over to Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, wherever you can find a podcast, and just search up Behind the Helm. Enjoy the show. Episode number 2. That's right, Season 2, Episode number 2. We're finally back at it. I finally got set up. You see the setup's a little different. For those of you watching video, for those of you listening to this later, obviously you can't see that it's different, but I'm in my house in Dahlgren, Virginia now, so we're going to talk about that. But make sure you smash that like button, share this feed, find it, like it, share it, follow it, get this information out there, because Season 2 is going to be off to a pretty serious start now, so that we can start talking about that move, the military move, what it looks like, and then moving overseas to Spain and everything that goes into that, things that you should look at. And it could just be some great information for people, along with some guests along the way. So Season 2, I know I already kicked it off, back in June, and then I haven't been around since. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Again, you can watch live on YouTube or here on Facebook, even Twitch, and you can listen to this later on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you can find a podcast. It'll be there. Should be up tomorrow for that. And of course, you can always watch it later. For those of you who watched the video, you may have seen that we posted a live video yesterday. For those of you on Spotify and those type of places, you're just going to have to go somewhere else and watch it. But it was just a very special thank you for Veterans Day. Got some mail and wanted to do a special thing for that. So what are we doing today? What are we going to talk about today? Well, a couple things. One, I am officially no longer attached to recruiting. It's bittersweet. It's good and bad, and we'll talk about that at a later episode. I'm sure I can get Petty Officer Levesque to come back, and we can really dive into our experience because they were completely different when it comes to recruiting. And as always, know that this podcast is not the view of my current command or the Navy. It is mine and mine alone. So let's talk about what's been going on and what's upcoming. So from June to August, what happened? Well, from June to now, where have I been? Let's get into that. Well, from June to August, I technically was still in recruiting, but things got really busy. I was still going into work, helping get my replacement ready to go, getting things ready for the house, figuring out what I needed to do for that next part of my orders, which hopefully our next episode, I'm going to kind of go over some military orders with you, because I will tell you, being somebody who's been in the military 12 years, military orders can still be very confusing. So what is it that you're looking at in all this jumble of text? So be looking forward to that. But let's just catch up to where we're at now. So from June to August was very busy, and my next stop was a school in Great Lakes. That is north of Chicago. I was there for about 35 days, 36 days, and there was just no way for me to do the show there. The internet wasn't going to handle it. I had to stay in the Navy Gateway Inn and Suites, which may sound bad, but it wasn't. It was a hotel. I was basically staying in an apartment. I had a living room, a separate bedroom, 2 TVs, full-size fridge, 2-burner stove. There was pot, pan, plates, silverware. It was great. And I was excited to get back to Great Lakes because I hadn't been there in a long time. So it's just one of those things, going back as a chief, you know that you're going to see a lot of sailors who are coming right out of boot camp, and the chief rank just carries a lot of weight with it. We've talked about that. Plus, I love marching and hearing cadence, and they do it all the time there. So I'm not going to lie, I was like a little child. In my living room, they put me up on the 5th floor, and all of the new barracks were right across, or not new barracks, but all the barracks were like right across the street, and I knew they marched out in the morning. So in that living room, there was this big window, and it was kind of a bay window, so there was this counter, and I opened the window and sat in that bay window so I could listen to them march off in the morning and listen to it ring through the base. It was pretty cool. Also, what was really awesome was to find out that my LPO, who later became my DLCPO, so that's leading petty officer and then divisional chief petty officer from the Cole, was actually there and was the DLCPO of the schoolhouse. So it was really cool to connect with him, run into him, and some other stuff happened while I was there. So first and foremost, what did I go there for? I went there for a school that everybody with my rate now goes through right after they do their first school. It's just like a little supplementary school. But back when I went through, they didn't have it. So I had to go back there. So I was sitting in a class with a bunch of E3s, and I'm a chief in the back, like trying to learn. It was kind of funny. But it was good. It's called TACTO, and it takes all that entire month, and you go over basic networking into Linux, Unix, Cisco, coding. So it was challenging a bit, and then I just kind of got it and knew some of it, but it was good. It was a really good refresher coming off of recruiting and not really messing with any of that. Now, what was really interesting was when the chief selections for the year had came out, I was still at the recruiting command and talked to a few of the newly selected chiefs or soon to be chiefs, hopefully, right? And was a little bummed out that I was going to miss out on their season. Well, I showed up to Great Lakes 3 days after their season started, and I was going to graduate 3 days after their chief pinning. So once I found out that my friend was there, I also found out that he was leading the chief season, and I wanted to get involved. So I actually bought into their Chiefs mess. So shout out to C-Stick up there in Great Lakes for letting me be a part of your season, for letting me buy in and pass on that knowledge. And I got to do their entire season with them. So that was really fun. It was a completely different environment than being in recruiting and doing that. And it was interesting too, because here I am as a chief that none of them know, and I walked in and everybody was accepting. That's just part of being part of the Chiefs mess. So it was really cool to get to do that. And I will say sometimes, being a chief does come with its perks. So when I'm doing that training stuff, I was able to be late to school a lot and miss out. But, I kept up on my studies and what I was doing. So I was able to finish that school actually with the highest GPA in the class, even though half the time I wasn't there because I was doing other training as well. So that was really fun. On the weekends, every other weekend when my son Logan would come over, I was able to drive home. It was about a 3-hour drive, and I'm going to show you some of this here in a little bit. But actually, you know what I can do? I can just pull it up right now so that you can see this. Mind my voice, too. I know I might sound a little nasally, and I'm itching my nose. I'm going to be drinking a lot of water. The weather change is absolutely ravaging me right now with my sinuses. Not to mention, I also got my flu shot yesterday, so they are combating against each other. So that's wonderful. All right, so if we look here, you can see, if I zoom in here, you can see here's Indiana, and this point is where I was living. And Anderson right here is where I was working out of, recruiting out of, okay? And then Great Lakes, being up in Illinois, you can see Chicago here is here. So this is about a 3-hour drive to come home. And Great Lakes is known as the gateway for the Navy, or the quarterdeck of the Navy, the quarterdeck of the Navy. I was thinking of Gateway Inn and Suites. Quarterdeck of the Navy because it's where most sailors start out. And you can see here, here's where the base is. Here's NGIS, or Navy Gateway Inn and Suites, where I stayed. And that's the main building. The Navy Gateway Inn and Suites is right here, up here in the top. And then my schoolhouse was right here. So it was quite easy. In fact, the first few days I just walked there. So, that was nice. So that's what I did all the way through until October. And then once I got to October, right at the beginning of October, after the chief pinning there, I came home back to Indiana, where my wife was diligently dealing with the military move, which we will also be getting into in a few episodes as well. But it ended up being a 3-day ordeal where they came, they packed everything, and then they came back to load it onto a truck, and it wouldn't all fit, so they had to come back another day to put it on the truck. So when I got there, everything was already done, timed perfectly. I'm sure my wife will not appreciate that comment, but that's what happens. Anyway, so when I get there, we have, our house is almost 2,000 square foot, and it's basically empty. Our living room and bedroom and everything all became one. We were sleeping on an air mattress and had our TV and stuff. The good thing is that knowing that the next week we would be moving, we already had housing taken care of. You always want to do that stuff in advance, which we'll get into when we look at orders in Dahlgren. However, we weren't going to move in until it was Columbus Day on the 8th or 9th, whatever that Monday was there in October. So that gave us a week to go ahead and do all the final stuff of the house we need to. For anybody who's ever moved out of a house, you got to clean and do all those things. Big shout out to family who was nearby who was able to come and help. We thought we were going to be able to do it all ourselves, and with me not being there, my wife's parents were able to come up, and I think really just they didn't do a lot other than keep my wife's sanity while all these movers, because it's not like a couple guys, it's a big team. They come in and they pack up the entire house pretty much in a day. So we got that all done. We drove my truck, and I rented a car dolly for my wife's car, which gave us a lot of extra space, because you got to think, it was me, my wife, our 2 dogs, And so we were able to keep more back because we had the entire truck, and then nobody's in the car, so we have the entire car. So, we kept back more than you normally would and was able to pack it down. So even though we were on an air mattress, we definitely had at least a couple, kind of creature comforts that we were able to keep around and be able to do that. Now, when we moved to Dahlgren, Virginia, which was where we are now, we went ahead and drove, like I just said. So let me go ahead and show you that. So here we are, Great Lakes. Okay, so I'm going to drive back down to Indiana. And you can see here, this is where we were living in Ingalls. Now, where we drove to, and actually I have that specific drive pulled up here, where we drove to is Dahlgren, Virginia, which can look kind of weird because it's just under Washington, D.C. It is just inside Virginia. It is called the Northern Neck. And you can see there's two different routes you can take. It all depends on the traffic at the time. I'm very used to doing this drive where it comes up and you come down and around Washington, D.C., a little over 10 hours. But when we went, there was some traffic issues. So it actually routed us. We came this southern route here and came down, past Fredericksburg and up that way. That's what we did. So, let me, I can zoom in on this other one here where you can more see kind of the layout, because what's interesting about Dahlgren, and I'm sure in a future episode, we'll get into that a little bit, like what is Dahlgren? Why is that base there? Because it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So you can see here's Washington, D.C., and here's the Potomac River coming down, and you can see that the state line's right there on the Potomac River, and right here is Dahlgren. All right, so if we zoom in, you can actually see the base. So this is the main highway here that comes through, and basically right on the other side of this highway, you won't be able to see it too well, is the base. So this road that my cursor is on, right on the other side of that, all these woods, all of this is all the base. And you can see that there doesn't look like there's a lot, but there really is. So Dahlgren is a very interesting base with a lot of history, a lot of cool things to see, and I'll definitely fill you in more on that later when we get into it. But yeah, most definitely we're living right here in the housing area. You can't do a direct to it because the houses are what they are. But yeah, there's all kinds of housing stuff to do here, and it's kind of nice. I really enjoy it here. But traveling wasn't over. So we got here, and our goods were due, or our household goods were due to come the next day. But before we get into that, again, you're here on Behind the Helm, episode 2, season 2. Make sure to smash that like button, find it, like it, share it, follow it on whatever platform you're on. So we're just talking about where I've been and what we're doing moving forward and how we are where we are. So here at Dahlgren, we get here. We thought we timed everything perfectly so that they had the keys for us. We got here kind of late on a Monday. So, hey, we're going to get in, just get our basic stuff in, go to sleep. And then on Tuesday, our household goods will come in. We're going to do our home inspection. We're going to do everything, right? Well, we didn't expect the movers to be there as early as they were. And I woke up a little earlier than my wife, went to get us some breakfast, which, again, I'm an idiot because I got stuff that you microwave and we didn't have a microwave. So that was cool. Learned how to make that in the oven. That was fun. And while I was gone, I started getting frantic texts and calls from my wife, which I didn't see because my phone was acting funny. And everybody got to the house all at once. Giant semi and another box truck pulled up. The home inspector was here, everything. So it was very stressful, but we persevered, got everything in. They will unbox everything for you. They'll take everything out of the box, take all the boxes, all the trash, but then it's everywhere. So I didn't want them to do that. So then came dealing with all of that. I will tell you that me personally, I enjoy moving into a new home. I like getting to put things where I want and make them what we want. But I absolutely hate packing, so I'm glad they did that. The downside is they'll take the boxes to the room you want it in. But these are professional movers, so they use way better boxes and a ton of packing materials when you move, way more than I'd ever pay for. Even your clothes. To me, when you're moving, you got clothes on hangers, put a trash bag over that, you're good to go. No, they get the wardrobe boxes, the tall, really nice ones with a bar in it, hang it all in there. So the downside is you have basically rooms stacked full of boxes, and it's trying to get things open, navigate it, find a way to stash your trash, so that you can get it out and have the boxes out of the way. It's kind of hectic. I had to go to another school before I started school here, which was at another place in Virginia. So my goal in the couple weeks that I was here before that school started was to help my wife get settled, get as much of the house unpacked as we could, and make sure everything was good to go. The problem is that your boy's got ADHD and anxiety. So when I start a project, it must be finished. I can't stop. We have all these days to do things, and my poor wife is trying to keep up with me, but also like, hey, we can do this tomorrow. So some very long days. So got a few comments here. Chief Hepburg says, hi, how you doing? Good to see you. And then I see Shields out there. It's about damn time you're back, Chief. How you doing? I'm doing great, man. Thanks for the shout out. And I know it's been a while, and the stuff that we're going to cover in season 2 is really important. And I've already gotten some great information, so is my wife. So that's going to be a good time. So anyway, we get everything most of the way unpacked, and then I have to pack up to leave again to go to another school. And this is an extra school that I didn't even have to do. I volunteered to do, and it was down in Damnick, which is more down towards Norfolk, which is where the main Navy base is. I had to go to CSSE, which is Combat Systems Senior Enlisted Academy. So that was really cool. Gives me an NEC, which helps on the ship. They need so many people with that. So just to show you that, because that's another... No, I'm not out of Anderson anymore, Shields. You missed the beginning. I'm out of recruiting. I'm back up in Dahlgren, Virginia now for school, and I'll be here until sometime next year. But yeah, this other school I had to go to was another 3 hours away. So there was a weekend that I did still come home. But let me show you. Here we're talking about Dahlgren. You see it here. And if we come down where we can look at the rest of Virginia. Here we go. I'm just going to zoom it out. All right. So you can see here, and I know for those of you listening to this later, the visual is great on an audio platform. You can see Dahlgren's here. Here's Richmond. And you got to keep going down because we're going to have to come all the way out here. Here's Williamsburg, Virginia. A lot of people have heard of Colonial Williamsburg. Come down past that. We got Newport News. And then right here is the infamous tunnel. Yep, there's a big old tunnel. So you take this. You can see that road just disappeared. And this goes under the water. You come up, and then you're in Norfolk. So here is the naval base, the giant naval base in Norfolk, Virginia. But I wasn't quite done driving yet. Had to keep coming out all the way out here to Virginia Beach, to the Damnick base. There's actually multiple Navy bases out here. But I had to come all the way here to Damnick. So if we if we zoom this out, you can see just how far that is. So here is Damnick, Virginia. We're almost down to North Carolina. And way up here is Dahlgren. So another 3-hour drive. This school, though, was only 12 days, so it wasn't too long. And something really awesome happened while I was there. So while I was there, it was a lot of great information, a lot of refresher. I'm going to a ship in Spain to be the DLCPO, or Divisional Leading Chief Petty Officer, for what's called CF Division. What that is everybody who has done my job on the ship, along with a couple other different work centers. So think of it like you have your work center and your people that work on certain stuff, and you have a work center supervisor, right? So they're direct manager. Think of me as almost a regional manager of multiple, right? So then above me within Combat Systems, there's a position called CSMM, Combat Systems Maintenance Manager, which is a senior chief or a master chief. And it's somebody that's probably been a DLCPO before. They don't necessarily have to be an Aegis FC. Well, the one I've been talking to on the ship has already supposed to have left like twice, and he kept getting extended. I see my wife said, be careful with your words, your wife is watching. I did try to unpack it all in one day, just so you know she is correct. That did happen. So he is getting replaced, and the person who's replacing him, who will more or less be my direct boss, was in the CSSE class with me. So I got to meet him preemptively before going to Spain next year. This is great, right? So I get to meet him. We get to know each other and find out, like, what is he expecting? How does he plan to run things? What am I going to be doing? And how is that going to work? How are we going to work? Do we absolutely hate each other? Turns out, no. In fact, funny story for those who know me, I used to disc golf a lot and kind of fell off while I was in Indiana. I thought I would do it a lot more, and it just didn't work out that way. But the first day I met him, he came up behind my truck because I have some stickers on the back, knocked on my window. I rolled down the window, and he said, you disc golf? I said, yeah. He goes, me too. And I was like, oh, cool. I didn't even realize it was him until we were in class. Come to find out, he is really into disc golf and has been for years and years and years, and has played in tournaments and to the level of money prizes. So I'm like, wow, that's cool. So we started going, and I'm very familiar with the disc golf courses in the Virginia Beach area because that's where I disc golf very heavily and started getting into playing tournaments. So we started disc golfing together pretty much every day. I didn't have my stuff, but he had extra in the truck, and it was a good opportunity for us. I think the first day he told me, look, man, we don't got to talk about work or anything. I was like, no, let's do it. Like, I want to know who I'm working with. So, that doesn't happen. A lot of times you get to your ship or your next command, and that's when you meet people, if they're even there. So I've gotten the opportunity to meet him and get to know him. And then what's even better than that is, come to find out, his last command was here in Dahlgren, and that they live 5 minutes away from us off base, and that they're going to Spain. They're leaving pretty much next week. So they've already been going through all of this. It's him, his wife, and they have 3 kids, as well as pets, so I was like, all right, cool. Like, let's get together. We went home on a weekend. Me and my wife went over, met him and his wife and his kids. His wife has been absolutely a godsend right now. It's still so far off for us, but having somebody who's going through it right now has been great. She's been turning stuff over to my wife, like, hey, print out this, get yourself a binder, have this, do this. And those things, as we get closer to Spain, I will dive more into in this season. But you want to talk about one of the best case scenarios. Like, it's been great. So, fast forward 12 days, we come back up here to Dahlgren after meeting my future CSMM and his family and everything, because we came back on the one weekend we had, and then we had to go back to school. Get up here, get checked in, and now I am starting the school that I am supposed to be in. So based on my orders, this was my last stop because of the length, which we'll get into orders and how those work later in the season. So started school on November 2nd, I think 2nd or 3rd. And I know what you're saying, Chief. It's almost Thanksgiving. So if you've been there that long, where have you been? Well, remember when I said I tried to get everything unpacked in one day? My wife said that. Yeah, I did. And we have most of it unpacked, but not all of it. And I will tell you, still not everything is unpacked. For the most part, it is. Just got my son's room done. I just started hanging. Originally, we weren't really going to hang anything in the house because we didn't think that we were going to be here that long. And the more I thought about it, was like, you know what? I'm hanging stuff. Like, this is our home, regardless. So got a lot of it hung yesterday that I could just hang with nails. And then actually after this show, I had to go put in some wall anchors to hang some other stuff. But getting our office set up and getting, figuring out how I was going to do the podcast, how it was going to work was a big challenge, to be honest. Just because I'm so used to having the office and, the studio that myself and Petty Officer Levesque put together, to have to figure that out on my own without Levesque has been super fun. I miss having Levesque to do all the technical stuff, right? So again, you're here on Behind the Helm, Season 2, Episode 2. We're playing catch up from June until now. So make sure you smash that like button, share this feed, and as always, you can watch the video later if you're listening. It's always available. We got some cool bonus content too, so those listening on those audio platforms might want to go find it on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, because it's going to be fun. So we're here, got pretty much everything unpacked. I've started school. I'm figuring out what that is about, and the school is AWS. So more or less it's a warfare coordinator position, so you have to know a little bit more. Almost all, actually I will say like all Aegis FCs for the most part, go back through AWS. So the Navy's constantly, when you're going from one place to another, they really do continue to educate you, continue to give you more to know, and it helps refresh you, which this has been a huge refresher for me already. Just getting into talking about some of the gear and things like that. I'm like, oh yeah, hey, I remember that. But I'm going to a ship that is, like I had told you guys before, I'm going to DDG 51, the Arleigh Burke, and I was originally on DDG 67, the USS Cole. Both are what are considered Arleigh Burke class destroyers. So they more or less are molded from the same mold, right? They're like the same type of ship. Arleigh Burke, though, was the first one. So it's a little different, and it's been updated. It's called a baseline. So they have completely a lot of the same equipment, but also completely different equipment, especially when it comes to setting in combat. Like you see in the intro video, the people sitting there on watch with the headsets on. It is completely different. And luckily here in Dahlgren, they have a lab set up that is like a mock-up of combat. So we've been going in there. I've been able to set at the console and like, wow, this is completely different, but the functionality for the most part is the same. So realistically, it's been so far a very, very good refresher for me. And again, I bought into this Chiefs mess too. Paid into this Chiefs mess, said, hey, I'll help out in whatever way I can. They're going to give me a shirt and a coin. It's a big thing. I would tell anybody out there, if you're in the Navy, if you're a chief, obviously be part of the Chiefs mess, but first classes, first class Petty Officer Association, depending on the command, there may be one, there may not be. And if there's not, reach out to people, because you can get the bylaws, get one started. so that you have that camaraderie and those other people that you can turn to. And look, you don't got to be a first class or chief either, because there's also what's called the JEA, or Junior Enlisted Association. We had that on the USS Cole. And if you're a junior sailor and your command doesn't have that, or you've never heard of that, like, look, start asking some questions. That way you can have people to talk to and be able to, learn from and help out. So we're here in Dahlgren. That pretty much catches us up. I'm here at school. We're maintaining the home. I've been joking with my wife that her new job is the move. As my new CSM, Sean has said, hey, man, make her job the move. And I thought he was being sarcastic. And I was like, if I tell my wife that, she might hit me. But what he meant by that is there's so much to do once we get closer to it, that it would be very, very beneficial for her to have the time to do it. So what you can't see in the office is that way. There's another desk. Before we left, we both bought ourselves desks, and she has her computer set up, and she's been diligently working on stuff too. The dogs are here. Chief Hetberg is completely worried about our animals. The dogs are here. They did come with us, so they drove with us, and they're here. You can't hear them. They're downstairs with Claire, because when we talk to people on the phone, or if I'm doing the podcast, they get really jealous and will start whining and barking. So if you've ever called me and I've been like in the house, you'll hear the dogs, and that's because they're ridiculous. They are ridiculous. Tell Claire to bring them in. No, I do that. Maybe next time, because she has them downstairs with a gate up. I'm upstairs. They moved us into it's a 4-bedroom. It's a townhome, which is fine. They actually offered us, it's like a standalone home, but the square footage was so small, I just didn't think it was going to work. So this townhome is actually more square footage than our house was back in Ingalls, and it gives us the room to move things around. So as we're having to do things, we actually have a guest room with a bed and everything. So that's nice. But yeah, that completely catches us up. I promise you, Chief Hetberg, I will get the dogs on the podcast. One day, not today. It's not happening today. So I want to tell you guys that I'm going to be back on track. I'm going to start doing this weekly. From the looks of my schedule, I'm going to be able to do it live every Thursday at 4, just like, we've always said that we're going to. It was hard not knowing. And I know there hasn't been a lot of moving information for anybody out there, but I wanted to update everybody on where I'm at and what to expect. So coming up in the next few episodes, I want to go over military orders with you. I want to go over transferring from commands. What do you need to do when you leave? What do you need to do before you leave, which we talked a bit about with, at the time, NC1 Gayton back in June. But guess what? He was one of those selected for chief, and now it's Chief Gayton. Congratulations to him and all the chiefs out there that made chief this year. The ones at Sea-Stick, Great Lakes that I got to work with. And you know what? To the ones there at Intact Heartland, because even though I wasn't there were 3 or 4 of them that still continued to call me and talk to me. So, hey, shipmate, you got it. You understood. You understood the assignment. So, yeah, I want to go over orders. I'm going to look through my orders, and make sure nothing would be classified. And if not, I'll just pull up mine so that I can go through them with you to kind of break them down and how you read those and what those look like, as well as talk about how you set up your move and what to expect. I've tried to ask my wife to do the podcast with me, and she has pretty much told me no. But I might still be able to get her on, not in front of the camera, but I'm pretty sure I could get her to agree to sit on the other side of the table from me with a mic, because this experience has been very eye-opening for her as well. This was her first. What she knew of the military with me was recruiting. So this is her first time living on a military base. This is her first time doing a military move. And so for me, doing it multiple times compared to somebody who had never done it, that view could be very beneficial to not just some of you service members out there, but also some of those family members out there who may be watching this, who have family in the military, or for those spouses out there that aren't exactly sure what to expect. So that's the plan moving forward. I will tell you that next week, Thursday, is Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, I'm not coming home to Indiana, but that's okay. I'm not going to do the show, though. We're going to be a little busy with some stuff, and that'll give me time to get some stuff ready. But I promise you that the next Thursday we will be live. With that being said, this is our last episode before Thanksgiving. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Always remember that there are service members out there. You know, nobody feel bad for me that I'm not coming home for Thanksgiving. I am home with my wife. Yeah, I'll miss my family. But, you know, we're going to hopefully be able to come home for Christmas. But there are service members that will be on deployment who, you know, will have to celebrate Thanksgiving out on the ship, or they're overseas. So make sure you keep them in mind this holiday season. You know, a good way to keep them in mind is by smashing that like button and sharing this feed, because that's getting information about the military out to people in a very, I like to say that I'm kind of nonchalant about it. I really want you guys to get the information, and I really hope that, you know, I've had a few people tell me that this podcast has helped them through their processes, and that's why Petty Officer Levesque and myself really created it. Yes, it was, quote, a tool for recruiting, and it was something that we could do, and we hoped that it helped with that. But at the same time, I think we both really had the same view of, look, we want to help people, and we want to learn about things that we have, benefits that we have that we didn't know about, which we have. So, you know, I want to tell you all to have a very happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays. You know, be careful Black Friday. All right. If you're going out, that's fine. I worked in retail for years, and I swore I'd never work in retail again, so I didn't have to work on Black Friday. I also could care less about going out on Black Friday, unless it's like later in the day just to watch the craziness. But, you know, I get it. If some of you are, that's fine. Have fun doing it. And before we do that, speaking of service members and speaking of those that are, like, let's say at boot camp, I don't want you to think that if you go to boot camp, or if you have a family member who goes to boot camp over the holidays, that they don't get to enjoy that as well. Now, last year, okay. A couple years before that, obviously, they weren't able to do as much. However, I want to show you guys a video, and for those of you listening, you'll still be able to hear it. I'm going to show you guys a video. This is from last Thanksgiving. This video comes to us from ABC7 in Chicago. And every year, RTC, which is Recruit Training Command, up in Great Lakes, which is the other base up there, that's where you go to boot camp, they do an Adopt a Sailor program during Thanksgiving, where they take people who are in training and they take them off of base where they can go enjoy a meal, a Thanksgiving meal, whether it be with a family, or I believe in this video, they actually get to go to a VFW, which is really cool too. You all know I'm a huge advocate for the VFW and the American Legion. So I just want to show you this so that you can see that, look, it's not like you're in boot camp and then you never get to do anything ever again. So let me get this pulled up. And this video, again, is from ABC7 Chicago. And this was from last Thanksgiving. So let's go ahead and check this out.
Many of us have the luxury of spending Thanksgiving with our friends and family. But for many sailors going through training at Naval Station Great Lakes, family isn't close by. So the Mount Prospect community is welcoming these young sailors with open arms, giving them much to be grateful for today.
Whose broad stripes and bright stars.
The Star-Spangled Banner rings out through Mount Prospect's VFW Post 1337 as nearly 50 of the Navy's newest recruits stand at attention on Thanksgiving Day.
It's an honor now to
thank them for their service like we've been thanked for our service.
These recruits from Naval Station Great Lakes are part of the Adopt a Sailor program, which allows them to spend time in the community on Thanksgiving when they can't be with their families. Adopt a Sailor has been on pause for the past 2 years because of COVID, but this is the first time Mount Prospect has hosted the servicemen and women.
To help these young recruits celebrate their Thanksgiving because they can't go home today, right? It doesn't get any better than that, right?
It means a lot to me, and it's probably going to keep my spirits up for the next week.
The Thanksgiving holiday is extra special for Philadelphia's Cassidy Hess. Today is her 20th birthday, a time she normally spends surrounded by her loved ones.
I saw some kids playing football outside, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I should be doing right now